Hey everyone, and welcome to Boston Autoblog. It seems as though the cars just get crazier and crazier on the channel as we're taking a look at the 2021 Ferrari Roma. This is an all-new generation for the Ferrari brand, as it does go back to their roots to a certain degree, with more of a 60s-like driving dynamics, where it's a car for a gentleman's cruise, a car that's more laid back, a car that also has softer suspension for longer drives. This car right here goes up against the Aston Martin DB11. For some people, maybe the Aston Martin Vantage, McLaren GT, and also the Bentley Continental GT. The Ferrari Roma is significant for the brand in many ways. One being the fact that we have a lot of technology inside this vehicle, which we're going to find out later in this review. Also, it's more luxurious and the suspension is very forgiving. It's not really an F8 Tributo. I wouldn't even call it a baby 812. And maybe it's a little more of a luxurious Portofino, but it's its own unique personality. If we were to think of the Ferrari name or the Ferrari brand as being a family, the Roma is not going to go to the family business. It's not going to be part of the family business. It's going to do its own thing. It's going to go find its own path. And that's why this car is actually very special. So in this video, we're going to take a good long look at the Ferrari Roma and see why. If you are in the market for a Grand Tour, priced around $250,000, and you're comparing cars such as the Aston Martin DB11, McLaren GT, or also the Bentley Continental GT, then maybe, just maybe, going Italian and buying a Ferrari might be a great decision. Now, before I get in this review, I'd like to thank Ferrari of New England in Norwood, Massachusetts for allowing me to do this review. Their link will be in the description below, so you can check out their extensive Ferrari and used exotic inventory. And so, without wasting any further time, let's get right in this review. To describe the direction Ferrari has been going in as of late, it would be that technology and interior comfort have become more emphasized in culmination with an illustrious history of performance and overall great driving sports cars for a perfect harmony in the modern age of the automotive world. The new decade begins a whole new chapter for the Italian manufacturer, as the Ferrari Roma brings unorthodox styling while also being a dedicated Grand Tour that many believe is a game changer in this segment and should attract new buyers to the brand. While some will say it's an artistic and slightly more enthusiast-oriented iteration of the Portofino, there's something special about this car that reignites the passion behind the Ferrari name, but in a futuristic way. Starting off with pricing, the Roma comes in at $222,630, which is by no means the most affordable among its competitors. However, our model is well equipped for a grand total of $289,000. The intrigue behind Ferrari's latest creation begins with the Roma's uncanny resemblance to the Maserati Alfieri concept, which was to replace the Gran Turismo next year. It wouldn't be a stretch to say that this car caught enthusiasts and some journalists by surprise, not only because Ferrari already had the Portofino, which the Roma is closely related to, but Maserati then threw a curveball this year with the release of the MT20, which was thought to be a modern-day Ferrari Dino underneath the camouflage. In a somewhat evolving exotic car market, the Roma finds itself among well-established Grand Tours, such as the Aston Martin DB11, Bentley Continental, and Porsche 911. However, with the proud heritage Ferrari has, there's no question that buyers will be drawn in by the aura and mystique of this Italian brand. Taking a look at the road presence, the Roma's design is not only influenced by legendary cars from the past like the 250 GT and, in my opinion, the Ferrari Daytona, but the front fascia is based on the SF90 Stradale, which is the new flagship for Ferrari. What draws the most amount of attention, or for some people, the reason why this Ferrari flies below the radar, is the lack of sharp body lines and the smoothness of the overall essence of this Grand Tour. Everything from the Roma's grille design to even the headlight housings gives this car a much more low-profile presence compared to an F8 Tributo or even the 812 Superfast. But also, to a certain degree, is why some equate the Roma to being the modern interpretation of the 550 Maranello simply due to its more reserved styling. Moving over to the side profile, the Roma is sitting on 20-inch alloy wheels wrapped in Michelin Pilot Supersport tires. On this model, we have the optional black brake calipers for a more low-profile look. You will get body color power folding side mirrors, but no turn signal indicators. Then coming around to the back, the more relaxed and less conspicuous styling actually gives the Roma a classy road presence that's almost Aston Martin-like to a certain degree. There's nothing wild or overstated, yet at the same time, Ferrari still managed to craft a striking design that some may say in the future is a timeless work of art. Uncharacteristic of Ferrari is a retractable rear spoiler that activates when you hit right around 60 miles per hour for better downforce. The way in which the taillights integrate into the body lines and how the overall rear fascia is molded for a smooth and flowing look, you can definitely see Ferrari's aspirations for this sports car, as it takes elements from competitors, but in true Italian fashion makes it unique. For performance, the Roma is powered by a 3.9-liter twin-turbo V8 engine that puts out 612 horsepower and 560 pound-feet of torque, and is paired with an 8-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission. In cold weather, I certainly felt the torque on the test drive, as this Grand Tour is certainly tail-happy, which adds to the fun of the driving experience. With a 0 to 60 time of 3.4 seconds, the Roma is actually only 0.5 of a second slower than the F8 Tributo, but certainly more softer when it comes to ride comfort and suspension. Compared to rivals, Ferrari falls right in line with the Aston Martin DB11 V8 and McLaren GT when it comes to performance, so for enthusiasts, the Roma will certainly fulfill their demands when it comes to driving dynamics and power. Not surprising, the Roma will come standard with rear-wheel drive. So keep in mind, if you do live in colder regions of the US, this likely won't be a year-round daily driver. For fuel economy, you can expect to receive right around 17 miles per gallon in the city, and 22 miles per gallon on the highway. Inside, you're given power adjustable heated leather seats, with Alcantara inserts for both the driver and passenger. When it comes to seating position, you sit low for a more engaged and connected feel to the car and road. And the way the bolstering and interior molds around you, it's an experience everyone should have at least once in their life. In front of you, a full 16-inch digital gauge cluster ushers in 21st century technology into Ferrari cars. But I do have to admit that after a few hours, I was still trying to learn how this display actually worked. Rather than using physical buttons, there's a touch-sensitive trackpad on the steering wheel that will allow you to customize this display, access different information, and allow you to swipe info from one side of the screen to the other. Unlike any other car I've reviewed, this digital display is home to your front, rear, and top view cameras, which does require a bit of a learning curve when maneuvering the Roma around. However, despite taking a few minutes to fully understand the layout, what I can appreciate is that Ferrari mounted all the buttons you'll be using while driving on the steering wheel, such as your turn signal indicators, and of course the Manettino. Your hands should be on the wheel at all times, and with this setup, that's exactly what Ferrari is encouraging. Moving over to the infotainment system, you'll have an 8-inch touchscreen with Apple CarPlay available as an option, but it is a pricey option. What surprised me was how responsive this user interface was, as it didn't lag on me during my time with this car. Resolution was impressive as well, and from a driver's perspective, everything is within arm's reach, which is exactly what I want to see, as the Roma's interior design is very driver-centric and focused. Optional, the passenger side will also have a touchscreen, and from here, they can adjust their volume and climate control, screen brightness, access their heated seats, and also see performance gauges to keep them engaged on longer drives. Returning to the center console, for the storage compartment, you'll have enough room for a smartphone, and there will also be a 12-volt outlet and USB input. While there are 2 additional seats in the back, most likely they will never be used, as even for myself, I couldn't get back there. Now, coming around to the back, this is really where the Ferrari Roma becomes a grand tour, because you can actually fit stuff in the trunk. So this car, to some degree, is practical and dailyable if you live in warmer climates, because up here in New England, we're not going to be driving a rear-wheel drive-based Ferrari during the winter. That's just not going to happen. However, if you do have a Cape House and you go down there during the summer, you could definitely fit 2 bags of luggage for you and a significant other, and you definitely have that practicality where if you're going to go to the grocery store with this car, you can definitely fit groceries as well. So for me, I think the Ferrari Roma, where it becomes very appealing for a lot of buyers in this segment, is the fact that to a certain degree, it is versatile in a sense that it's practical. So you can have stuff back here, you can go on vacations, you can go to the grocery store. It's just a great daily driver, especially if you live in Florida or California. But this is one of the reasons why I do think it compares very well with an Aston Martin DB11 and also a Bentley Continental GT. And then obviously, you're not going to have a power liftgate, but you will have a handle to close the trunk. And now, let's go on that test drive. So there's a few things I want to go over before we do this test drive. One being, huge thank you once again to Ferrari of New England for letting me do this. I am nowhere close to buying a Ferrari. This car is probably around $285,000, and I am nowhere close to buying a car in that price range. Now, moving on, it's around 40 degrees out, so tires are going to be a little cold. Probably not going to go too crazy with this. This is just a very rare opportunity, so I want to take advantage of that and not really get too crazy with this one. And then third, every single time I drive by this dealership, there's Aston Martin owners that come in to test drive this car. So that tells me who's actually looking at buying one of these. I think Ferrari has definitely found a way to attract new buyers to the brand, as Ferrari states that 70% of Ferrari Roma owners will be new to the Ferrari brand. It'll be the first ever Ferrari. So looking at how this car is set up, I think it's definitely safe to say that it's a different beast compared to what we've seen from Ferrari in the past. And then fourth, this is a whole new era for Ferrari. It's more luxurious, everything's more digitalized, the layout is so much different than Ferraris of the past. So this is a new era, and this is my first ever Ferrari I've ever driven, so I think it's rather fitting that I'm going to be part of that new era. So let's have some fun, let's take this car out for a drive, let's be respectful. Also, again, not to completely take advantage of Ferrari New England for doing this, because, again, I am nowhere close to buying a Ferrari. I am just here to test drive this amazing car out. This is absolutely incredible. Now again, the tires are cold, so we're not going to do anything crazy. 612 horsepower, rear-wheel drive on cold pavement and 40 degrees. It is not smart to really push this car to its limits. Now, it is currently in sport mode, and what I was expecting was that the engine wouldn't be as loud as it is. I know a lot of reviewers have said that the engine doesn't drone, but you do hear it. You hear that V8, you hear the exhaust, and it sounds so good. So being behind the wheel of the Ferrari Roma for the last 5 minutes or so, it's nice. It's definitely dailyable for sure. Now, again, I'm in sport mode. I can put it in bumpy road mode as well, which would definitely get a lot of use up here in New England. But this is definitely a car that I would totally drive all day, every day, for sure. And I think that's why a lot of people are drawn in by what the Roma offers, because you could always daily a Bentley Continental GT. I think theoretically in warmer climates you could, you know, drive an Aston Martin DB11 and maybe an Aston Martin Vantage on a daily basis. And then of course the McLaren GT. Now I personally, and I'm still a member of the Boston car community, I don't know anybody who's driven or purchased a McLaren GT yet. And I think that really comes down to the fact that when you're looking for a grand tour, you don't really want to buy a car that you're going to get a lot of looks. When you look at the Roma, it doesn't look like an actual Ferrari. It doesn't really look like a Ferrari that you would think of, like a F8 Tributo or even an 812 Superfast. But I think a lot of journalists get way too caught up in the fact that, oh, it kind of looks like a 250 GT or, you know, other cars like a 550 Maranello. And I'm sitting here thinking, this is a whole new era for Ferrari. I think what they're really trying to focus on here is reach people that are brand new to the brand, that they're not, they don't know much about the Ferrari heritage or the Ferrari history. They don't care if this car is maybe, you know, looks like the 250 GT, or I personally think the Ferrari Daytona, but that's just me. But I think what they're trying to go for here is a new look and to draw in new buyers, and I think that's exactly what the Ferrari Roma is going to do. Alright, so let's talk about button layout while we're on this very bumpy road. And I'm going to put this in bumpy road mode. And it's taking the bumps pretty well as you would expect in a Ferrari. And I'm not getting thrown around. Very nice. Now, when it comes to the button layout, all the buttons are on the steering wheel. So Ferrari is really trying to keep you engaged and fully, you know, keep your hands on the steering wheel at all times. So your turn signal indicators are mounted on the top of the steering wheel. Of course, you have your paddle shifters, carbon fiber, super nice. Also, you have a little button that will control your digital display in front of you. And of course, you have your Manatino on, and all the buttons, again, are right on the steering wheel. So that's pretty cool. Also, the infotainment system is really within arm's reach. So it's not too much of a hassle to change your climate control settings or the radio. It's pretty cool. Wow, I'm not really pushing it, but that is so nice. It's still a Ferrari. Even though it's a Grand Tour, it's still a Ferrari. Wow, and it's in sport mode. I'm not going to go in the race mode. The weather's too cold, the street's too cold. I'm not going to go crazy with that, but I could drive this car on a daily basis. I think that's what Ferrari's going for here. So as Schmid pointed out many months ago, the Ferrari Roma was actually the Maserati Alfieri. And, you know, the thing is, I think a lot of people were confused as to why Ferrari made the Roma, just because I think, you know, it kind of moves away from where they were in the past or where they've done throughout their history. But it is a throwback to the cars of the 60s, and in a modern way, in a modern era. And I do think that they're totally gunning for Aston Martin, they're gunning for Bentley and McLaren. I honestly think, though, if you're looking for a Grand Tour at around $250,000, I think McLaren falls short on that. I think a lot of McLaren owners will go with the 570S. Aston Martin, I think Aston Martin, to a certain degree, when it comes to people who love the brand, that are brand loyalists, I think that they're disappointed that Mercedes-Benz has really integrated themselves into the design of the car. Same V8 engine, and I think that really hurts those cars in the long run. You look at the interior layout, it's Mercedes-Benz. Especially with the Aston Martin Vantage, the DB11 hides it better, but you still see Mercedes-Benz parts. And I think if you're buying a car at $200,000, do you really want to spend that on essentially a Mercedes-Benz with an Aston Martin badge on it? Because I think you'd just say, well, I'd rather just have a Mercedes-Benz GT at that point. Ferrari, this is all Ferrari, and I am totally impressed here. I love it. Again, this is the first Ferrari I've ever driven, but it's dailyable. It's forgiving. The suspension is nice and soft. And if you're going to the Cape, you're going to your Cape house during the summer, or maybe you go in the mountains, you could totally drive this and not get tired of it. And I think that's what Ferrari's going for here. It's a more forgiving car, but also it does fly below the radar to a certain degree. So I totally love what Ferrari has done here. I think when it comes to the exterior looks, maybe it's a bit subjective. Maybe some people don't like it. I personally love it. The design is definitely based off of the SF90, and again, this is a whole new era for Ferrari. It's a whole new generation, and to be honest, I'm glad I'm a part of this. I'm glad I'm experiencing this at the beginning, because I was a big fan of the F430. That was my first dream Ferrari. I love also the F355, but those were still true Ferraris, or Ferraris that were traditional. This is a luxury Ferrari with a Ferrari engine, with Ferrari feeling, Ferrari badges, but it's all new, and I love it. I love the digital display. I love the infotainment system. This is what's going to draw in a younger demographic. This is what's going to draw in those people who may have purchased a Bentley in the past or an Aston Martin. This is for them, and I have to say, this car is like any other luxury car, except you have quite a lot of power under the hood. All right, so let's throw this into the corner a bit. Steering is very light, but not as light as many people were bringing it out to be, or at least that was my perception. It's definitely Italian-like. It's not as light as say, maybe an Alfa Romeo Giulia Quadrifoglio, but it's definitely, you can throw it around. It's responsive. The steering is definitely responsive for sure. Oh, this is the first time I can actually go under an overpass and actually hear the exhaust in a car I'm driving. This is great. You definitely feel the torque. You totally feel the torque in the rear. The rear end is definitely tail happy, but this is fun. This is totally fun. This is enjoyable. This is totally enjoyable. Just gonna get off the highway here, turn around, head back towards the dealership, but this was definitely a very special opportunity. And we're not gonna push it here in the corner just because the pavement is cold. I don't really know how warm the tires really are. But you can definitely feel the rear end is totally tail happy. It wants to kick out. That's why I'm, especially where the tires might be a little cold, I don't want to go too crazy with this. But this is definitely a fun car that maybe you wouldn't take to the track, but on some back roads, for sure, you'd have some fun. It sounds so good. It just sounds so nice. Now, even though they did tone down a bit on the exhaust, it does resonate a bit in the interior, and it just adds to the whole driving experience and environment you find yourself in behind the wheel of this car. But it's still true Ferrari. It might be a little bit more daily driverable, but it's a Grand Tour. Maybe not as loud as, say, a Maserati Gran Turismo, but it's still special. It's still a nice car, nice sounding car, and a car that I think, even though you're looking for maybe a 458 replacement or an F8 Tributo, I think that if you're looking for a car that you could actually daily and drive around town for sure and have some fun on the highway, I think the Roma fits that bill. It's a great blend. Now, the lasting impression has to be the forgiveness of the suspension. It's a true Grand Tour. And I do think, though, that if you're looking for a car that also sounds good, it sounds better than a Bentley Continental GT. And for me personally, if I'm buying a car on $250,000, I don't want a Mercedes-Benz V8. I'm just sorry. I just don't want a muscly V8. I want a Italian V8. I want a Ferrari V8. And that's what we have here under the hood of this car. And to me, it's a special Italian car. And I think that's why, if you're looking for a car in this price range, I think you gotta go Ferrari on this one, just because I think they've done a great job where It's not as wild as an F8 Tributo. It's not crazy sounding like an A12 Superfast. Now, for me, I would love to have an A12 Superfast with the V12, but I think most likely, if you're looking at buying a Roma, you've never looked at buying a Ferrari before, and I think this is a great way to ease you into the brand and possibly keep you as a loyal Ferrari owner. But also a lasting impression too is the fact that the interior, this is what we're going to expect to see from the crossover Ferrari that we're all hearing about. This is the direction Ferrari is going in. They're going in more the luxury direction, and I think that this is definitely something that Ferrari definitely needs desperately to really draw in a whole new demographic of buyer and consumer. So I am definitely impressed. I totally love what Ferrari has done here, and now it's time to give the keys back to the dealership, which is a bit of a disappointment to me for sure. So at the end of the day, the Ferrari Roma really truly is a car of its time. This is not a 458, this is not an F430 or an F355. I personally wouldn't even call it a Portofino or a California. It's a new car. It's brand new for the Ferrari brand. And also, when you look at the interior, digital display, infotainment system that's actually rather responsive. Also, the passenger seat also has a little touchscreen for themselves as well. But also, this car is very forgiving when it comes to the suspension, driving dynamics. It's just a different car overall that we've just never really seen from Ferrari, at least in the last 50 years. Now, I think a lot of people will say, well, this goes back to Ferrari from the 60s, and I think that's what people are really into right now. They're into grand tours, cars you can drive for very long periods of time. This is not a track-oriented car, although I think you could do it, but it's definitely a car that you would definitely not get tired of after a 2 or 3 hour drive for sure. And I think when you look at the competitors that the Ferrari Roma is going up against, such as the Bentley Continental GT or Aston Martin DB11 or Vantage, those are cars that you can daily drive, that you can drive on a very long journey. And Ferrari, to a certain degree, has never had that before. So now with the Roma, they can now compete in this segment truly, and also give you a great driving experience and driving dynamics that maybe the competitors just can't offer. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys next time.